The moment I entered the museum, I could feel a sense of excitement bubbling inside me. It was one of those rare days when I had decided to indulge in a little culture and history, something I usually did only on special occasions. I was eager to explore the new exhibit on ancient civilizations. The tour had just begun when I found myself inexplicably drawn to a particular display. It was a delicate vase, adorned with intricate patterns and colors that seemed to whisper tales of a bygone era. As I leaned in closer for a better look, my clumsy hand brushed against the display case. It felt like time slowed down as I watched in horror as the case tilted, then fell, and the vase shattered on the floor. A collective gasp erupted from the crowd around me, and I could feel the weight of their eyes on me. My face flushed crimson with embarrassment as I scrambled to pick up the broken pieces, my hands trembling. During the chaos, Jake, the tour guide, appeared like a calm oasis in the storm. He moved with an assured grace, his eyes fixed on me with a blend of concern and composure. His presence was like a cool breeze on a hot day. "Hey, it's okay," he said softly, kneeling beside me. His voice was steady and comforting, cutting through my panic. "Let's take a look at what we've got here." He gently took the fragments from my hands, handling them with a reverence that spoke volumes about his respect for the artifact and his professionalism. As he inspected the damage, his fingers moved with practiced precision, carefully assessing the situation. His calm demeanor was a stark contrast to the chaos that had just unfolded, and I found myself clinging to his words as if they were a lifeline. "It looks like we can fix this," Jake said, his voice soothing. "We'll get it sorted out, don't worry. These things happen." I could hardly meet his gaze, still mortified by what had happened. But his patience and kindness were like a balm to my frayed nerves. He spoke with such understanding and poise that my embarrassment began to fade, replaced by a sense of relief. Jake's reassuring manner not only helped diffuse the tension, but also made me feel valued, despite the mishap. As he continued to address the situation with quiet efficiency, I couldn't help but be drawn to his presence. His ability to handle the situation with such grace was impressive, and I found myself admiring him more with each passing moment. By the time he had finished assessing the damage and reassured the crowd, I was left with a profound sense of gratitude. The tour continued, but my thoughts were still on Jake, his patience, his calm, and the way he had turned a potential disaster into a manageable situation. I felt a strange, unexpected connection, and I wondered what other surprises this museum visit might hold. The initial embarrassment of my earlier mishap was slowly giving way to a more pleasant feeling as the tour resumed. Jake, the guide who had so graciously handled the situation, continued his presentation with an infectious enthusiasm that I found hard to ignore. As I tried to regain my composure, I couldn't help but notice how Jake commanded the room. He moved effortlessly from one exhibit to another, his gestures fluid and confident. His voice was rich with passion, and each word was carefully chosen to convey the significance of the artifacts. The way he spoke was like a story unfolding before me, and I found myself hanging on his every word. Jake's charisma was undeniable. His eyes sparkled with genuine interest as he delved into the history of each piece, his expressions animated and engaging. It was clear that he wasn't just reciting facts, he was sharing a part of himself with the audience. I watched as he pointed out details I might have otherwise missed, his explanations making the ancient artifacts come to life. Despite my lingering feelings of self-consciousness, I found it increasingly difficult to tear my eyes away from him. There was something magnetic about the way he spoke. His confidence was both calming and inspiring. I could see how much he cared about his work, and it was impossible not to be drawn into his passion. As he continued his presentation, Jake's energy seemed to fill the room. He moved with a natural grace, seamlessly transitioning from one exhibit to another, always keeping us engaged. His anecdotes and insights were not just informative, but also delivered with a warmth that made them memorable. Now and then, our eyes would meet. Each glance felt charged, as if there was an unspoken connection between us. Though I was still feeling a bit awkward about the earlier incident, Jake's charm and professionalism made me feel more at ease. I could sense that he was genuinely invested in making the tour a memorable experience for everyone, and his dedication was admirable. As the tour went on, I realized that my initial embarrassment was slowly melting away, replaced by a growing admiration for Jake. His ability to turn even a routine museum visit into an engaging and personal experience was nothing short of remarkable. I found myself hoping the tour wouldn't end, eager to hear more from the captivating guide who had turned my day around. By the time the tour concluded, I felt a curious blend of regret and exhilaration. Regret that it was over, and exhilaration from having experienced something so unexpectedly delightful. Jake had not only been an exceptional guide, but had also managed to capture my attention in a way I hadn't anticipated. As I left the museum, I couldn't help but wonder if I'd have another chance to see him again. I woke up the next morning feeling a strange mixture of embarrassment and resolve. My first visit to the museum had been a whirlwind of clumsiness, but something about Jake's charm and professionalism had left a lasting impression on me. I decided that I needed a second chance, not only to make amends for my earlier mishap, but also to see if my initial feelings about Jake were as profound as I thought. The following week, I walked back through the museum's grand entrance with a newfound sense of purpose. As I wandered through the exhibits, I could still feel the lingering effects of my previous embarrassment, but I was determined to focus on enjoying the exhibits this time. I planned to quietly blend into the crowd and savor the art without making any more mistakes. Halfway through the tour, I saw him again. Jake. He was speaking animatedly about a new collection of ancient sculptures, his hands gesturing as he shared his insights with an engaged audience. My heart skipped a beat. I approached the group, hoping to blend in unnoticed, but it seemed fate had other plans. As Jake finished his presentation and started to gather his materials, his eyes caught mine. A warm smile spread across his face, and he made his way over to me, his demeanor as approachable as ever. "Hey, it's you again," Jake said with a friendly grin. "I remember you from the last time. How's it going? Did you have a chance to explore the museum more?" I felt relief and nerves as I replied, "Hi, Jake. Yes, I'm back to see more of the exhibits. I wanted to come back and experience it properly this time." Jake's smile widened. "I'm glad to hear that. It's always nice to see a returning visitor. What did you think of the new exhibits?" As we started talking, I felt my initial anxiety begin to dissolve. Jake's interest in my opinion was genuine, and his enthusiasm was infectious. He shared intriguing details about the artifacts I hadn't noticed on my previous visit, weaving stories that made the exhibits come alive. His explanations were thorough and captivating, turning what could have been a mundane experience into something deeply engaging. We continued to chat as we walked through the museum. Jake's knowledge was impressive, and he had a knack for making complex history feel accessible and fascinating. His passion for his work was evident, and I found myself drawn to his insights and the way he made even the most obscure details feel important. With each conversation, I felt more at ease. Jake's presence was reassuring, and his ability to turn an ordinary museum visit into an extraordinary experience was remarkable. I was grateful for this opportunity to not only revisit the museum, but also to get to know Jake better. As the tour came to a close, I couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment. Not only had I managed to enjoy the museum without incident, but I also had the chance to connect with Jake on a deeper level. It was clear that he was more than just a knowledgeable guide. He had a way of making every interaction meaningful. As I left the museum that day, I found myself looking forward to my next visit. Jake had turned what could have been an awkward encounter into a delightful and memorable experience, and I was eager to see where this newfound connection might lead. Over the next few weeks, my visits to the museum became a regular escape from the daily grind. Each time, Jake and I found ourselves talking longer, our conversations drifting from the exhibits to more personal topics. It was as if the museum had become our little sanctuary, a place where we could share more than just our thoughts on art. Our friendship grew with each visit. Jake's demeanor was always warm and inviting, and I found myself looking forward to our chats as much as I did to explore the museum. We began meeting outside of work, grabbing coffee or lunch together, which allowed us to delve deeper into each other's lives. Jake was a great listener, and his insights often helped me see things from a new perspective. One afternoon, as we sat in a quiet corner of a nearby cafe, sipping our coffee, Jake's tone grew softer, and I could sense that he wanted to share something more personal. I watched as he hesitated, then took a deep breath, clearly gathering his thoughts. "I've never really talked about this before," he began, his voice low, "but there's a reason I'm so passionate about this museum." I leaned in, intrigued. "What do you mean?" Jake's eyes grew distant, and he stared into his cup for a moment, A few years ago, I lost my brother in a car accident. He was an artist, and his work was incredible. He had so many dreams and so much talent. Losing him was, well, it was like losing a part of myself. My heart ached for him as he spoke. The vulnerability in his voice was palpable, and I could see how much the loss had affected him. It made me realize that his passion for the museum went beyond just a love for art. It was a way for him to honor his brother's memory. "I didn't know that," I said softly. "I'm sorry for your loss." Jake nodded, a faint smile on his lips. "Thanks. It's been a while, but it still hurts. Working here and sharing the stories behind these pieces helps me feel connected to him. It's like I'm continuing his legacy in a way." I could see the weight of his words, and it struck me how deeply personal his connection to the museum was. It wasn't just a job for him, it was a way to keep his brother's spirit alive. The way he spoke about it made the museum's artifacts even more meaningful, knowing the story behind his dedication. As Jake continued to share his experiences and memories, I felt a deep sense of empathy and respect for him. His ability to transform his grief into something so positive was inspiring. It made me appreciate not only the museum, but also the person who brought it to life for me. Our conversations that day were filled with a new level of intimacy and trust. I realized that Jake had opened up to me in a way he hadn't with others, and it made me feel honored to be included in his world. His story made our friendship even more significant, and I felt a profound connection to him. As we finished our coffee and prepared to leave, I knew that our friendship had evolved into something special. We were no longer just acquaintances. We were friends who understood each other on a deeper level. As we walked back to the museum, I couldn't help but feel grateful for the bond we had built and curious about where this newfound closeness might lead us. It wasn't long before our conversations drifted beyond the confines of the museum and the exhibits. Jake and I had discovered a surprising number of common interests, and it was during these discussions that our connection deepened even further. One evening, after a particularly engaging tour, Jake and I decided to grab dinner at a small Italian restaurant near the museum. As we settled into our seats and began perusing the menu, the conversation took on a more relaxed and personal tone. "I've been thinking about trying out a new recipe this weekend," Jake said casually, scanning the menu. "I've been really into cooking lately." "Really?" I perked up, intrigued. "I've been experimenting with new recipes myself. It's become a bit of a weekend hobby for me." Jake's eyes lit up with genuine interest. "That's awesome. What kinds of dishes do you like to cook?" We quickly fell into a lively discussion about our favorite recipes and cooking techniques. Jake shared his love for classic French cuisine, while I talked about my passion for baking and exploring international dishes. It was fascinating to hear how his culinary interests mirrored my own, and our shared enthusiasm for food created an immediate bond. As the conversation flowed, Jake mentioned his fondness for classic films, a passion that matched my own. We exchanged our favorite titles and directors, laughing over our mutual admiration for old black-and-white movies. It was clear that we had a lot in common, and our shared interests seemed to create an invisible thread connecting us. "I can't believe we both love classic movies," Jake said with a grin. "What's your all-time favorite?" I thought for a moment before responding. "It's hard to choose, but I'd have to say Casablanca. There's just something timeless about it." Jake nodded in agreement. "That's a great choice. I've always been partial to Roman Holiday. Audrey Hepburn is incredible in that film." Our shared love for classic films and cooking made our conversations feel effortless. We found ourselves discussing our favorite scenes and memorable quotes, and even debating the merits of different directors. It was like discovering a secret language that only we spoke. Our connection grew stronger with each shared passion. We began to plan our weekends around cooking experiments and movie marathons. Jake introduced me to some of his favorite recipes, and I was delighted to share my culinary creations with him. Our time together was filled with laughter, delicious food, and the joy of discovering new films to enjoy. The more we talked and spent time together, the more I felt a deepening emotional bond. It was clear that our shared interests were not just hobbies. They were a reflection of our personalities and values. Each conversation brought us closer, and I couldn't help but feel a growing sense of affection for Jake. As our friendship continued to evolve, I found myself eagerly looking forward to our time together. The connection we had forged through our shared passions was both comforting and exciting. I was curious to see how this newfound closeness would shape our relationship and where it might lead. For now, I was content to savor the moments we spent together, knowing that our mutual interests had laid the foundation for something truly special. When Jake invited me to a private exhibition at the museum, I was thrilled and honored. He had mentioned it casually during one of our recent conversations, and I had been eagerly anticipating the opportunity to experience it. The idea of exploring a special collection with him, away from the usual crowds, seemed like the perfect way to deepen our connection. The evening of the exhibition arrived, and I found myself standing in front of the museum's grand entrance, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. Jake had suggested we meet a little earlier to get settled before the event officially began, so I arrived slightly ahead of time, taking in the elegant surroundings. Jake greeted me with a warm smile and a friendly hug. He looked dashing in his suit, and his presence seemed to make the evening even more special. As we entered the museum together, I couldn't help but notice how his enthusiasm for the exhibits was even more palpable in this intimate setting. The private exhibition showcased a collection of rare and stunning artworks, many of which were not usually on public display. The gallery was beautifully lit, and the atmosphere was both serene and captivating. Jake guided me through the rooms, sharing insights and anecdotes about each piece. His deep knowledge and passion for art were evident, and it was clear that he had a special connection to this collection. We spent the evening discussing the artworks, admiring the intricate details, and marveling at the stories behind them. Jake's explanations were rich and engaging, making each piece come alive in a way I hadn't experienced before. I found myself completely absorbed in our conversation, enjoying the way he brought his perspective and expertise to the discussion. At one point, we stood in front of a particularly striking painting. Jake's eyes lit up as he talked about the artist's life and the historical context of the piece. His excitement was contagious, and I could see the genuine love he had for his work. "This one always gets me," Jake said, his voice tinged with admiration. "It's not just about the artwork itself, but the story behind it. You can almost feel the artist's emotions through the brushstrokes." I nodded, captivated by the way he spoke. It's incredible how art can convey so much about the artist's experience and the era they lived in. As the evening went on, we found a quiet corner of the gallery where we could take a break and enjoy some refreshments. We continued our conversation, this time shifting to more personal topics. Jake shared more about his experiences working at the museum and the impact it had on him. It was clear that this place was more than just a job for him. It was a part of his identity. We laughed, shared our thoughts, and enjoyed each other's company in a way that felt both comfortable and intimate. The private exhibition had become more than just an opportunity to see rare artworks. It was a chance for us to connect on a deeper level and share an unforgettable experience. The evening at the private exhibition had been nothing short of magical. The artwork around us seemed to fade into the background as Jake and I continued to explore the gallery, absorbed in our world. The intimate setting, coupled with the serene atmosphere, made the night feel almost dreamlike. We had just finished admiring a stunning collection of Impressionist paintings and had found a quiet corner near a large, ornate window that overlooked the city lights. The soft glow of the gallery lights cast a gentle ambiance, and the distant hum of conversations provided a soothing backdrop to our private moment. Jake and I stood side by side, taking in the view outside. The city skyline sparkled beneath us, and the night felt filled with endless possibilities. I glanced at Jake and noticed that his expression had shifted from his usual enthusiastic demeanor to something more contemplative. He took a deep breath and turned to face me, his eyes holding a mixture of vulnerability and sincerity. "Laura, there's something I need to tell you," he began, his voice steady but tinged with emotion. I looked at him, my heart racing slightly. "What is it, Jake?" He hesitated for a moment, his gaze lingering on mine. "Over the past few weeks, I've come to realize that my feelings for you have grown beyond just friendship. I've been trying to find the right time to tell you, and tonight seemed like the perfect moment." I felt a rush of surprise and confusion. My mind raced as I tried to process his words. The idea of Jake harboring romantic feelings for me was unexpected, but as I looked into his eyes, I couldn't deny the genuine warmth and affection they held. "I didn't expect this," I said softly, feeling my cheeks flush. "I've always enjoyed our time together, and I feel a connection with you too, but I didn't realize." Jake took a step closer, his hand gently brushing against mine. "I understand if you're surprised. I just needed to be honest with you about how I feel. I didn't want to leave things unsaid." His touch sent a shiver down my spine, and I was drawn to him in a way I hadn't anticipated. The romantic atmosphere of the evening, combined with the heartfelt confession, created a moment that felt both intense and intimate. "I do feel something for you, Jake," I admitted, my voice trembling slightly. "I've been feeling drawn to you, and now that you've shared your feelings, it all makes sense." Jake's face lit up with a relieved and hopeful smile. "I'm glad to hear that. I've cherished the time we've spent together, and I'd like to see where this could lead. But I want you to know that I value our friendship above all else and don't want to rush anything." The sincerity in his voice reassured me, and I felt a sense of excitement and anticipation. This revelation opened a new chapter in our relationship, one filled with possibilities and potential. The mutual attraction was undeniable, and the prospect of exploring these feelings together felt both thrilling and comforting. As we stood there, enveloped in the soft glow of the gallery lights, I felt a sense of clarity and warmth. The evening had brought us closer in a way I hadn't expected, and I was eager to see how this newfound connection would unfold. Jake's confession had transformed the night into something unforgettable, and as we shared a tender, lingering look, I knew that our relationship had taken a significant and beautiful turn. After Jake's heartfelt confession, I found myself eagerly anticipating our first official date. We had discussed the idea briefly, and it felt like the natural next step in our evolving relationship. The anticipation built up over the following days, and I couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and nervousness. Jake had chosen a cozy, dimly lit restaurant for our date, a charming place known for its intimate atmosphere and exquisite cuisine. As I walked in, I was immediately struck by the warmth and ambiance of the space. The soft glow of candlelight and the gentle strains of jazz music created the perfect setting for what promised to be a memorable evening. Jake greeted me with a warm smile and a bouquet of delicate flowers. "You look stunning," he said, his eyes twinkling with admiration. I felt my cheeks flush with pleasure as I accepted the flowers, and we made our way to our table. We settled into our seats, and as we perused the menu, our conversation flowed easily. The initial nervousness melted away as we delved into more personal topics. The evening was filled with laughter and genuine connection as we shared our thoughts, dreams, and experiences. Jake spoke openly about his passion for art, sharing stories that revealed his depth and vulnerability. I found myself captivated by his insights and the way he expressed his feelings. In turn, I opened up about my own experiences, my hopes for the future, and the things that mattered most to me. As the night wore on, the connection between us deepened. The romantic setting seemed to enhance our emotional intimacy, and I felt a profound sense of closeness with Jake. Our conversations grew more meaningful, and I realized how much I valued the honesty and openness we shared. After dinner, Jake surprised me with a special treat. "I've planned something a bit unconventional for tonight," he said with a mischievous smile. "I hope you're up for a little adventure." Curiosity piqued, and I followed him as we left the restaurant and headed back to the museum. I was intrigued and excited about what he had planned. When we arrived, Jake led me through the museum's quiet halls, and I could tell that this wasn't part of the usual visitor experience. He guided me to a secluded entrance, where we were greeted by a soft, ambient light. "Welcome to a private after-hours tour," Jake announced, his voice filled with enthusiasm. "I wanted to share this with you because I thought it would be the perfect way to end our special evening." As we wandered through the museum's galleries, the atmosphere felt almost magical. The artworks, usually surrounded by crowds of visitors, were now bathed in a soft, private glow. The silence of the museum, combined with the beauty of the exhibits, created an incredibly intimate experience. We took our time exploring each piece, discussing them in depth, and enjoying the solitude that allowed us to connect on a more profound level. The museum, which had been a backdrop to our growing relationship, became a part of our romantic adventure. Jake's thoughtful gesture made the evening even more unforgettable. The museum's quiet beauty mirrored the connection we had developed, and I felt a deep sense of gratitude and affection for him. As the night drew to a close and we walked out of the museum, I couldn't help but reflect on the incredible journey we had shared. The combination of heartfelt conversation, the romantic setting, and the special museum experience made the night feel truly magical. With a final, tender kiss under the stars, we said our goodbyes, both of us filled with a sense of contentment and excitement about what the future might hold. The night had been everything I could have hoped for and more, and I was eager to see where our blossoming relationship would lead us. As I settled into my daily routine after the magical night at the museum, I couldn't shake the feeling that my growing relationship with Jake was starting to cast shadows over other parts of my life. It wasn't that I regretted our time together. I cherished every moment. However, the reality of balancing these newfound feelings with my personal and professional responsibilities was proving to be more challenging than I had anticipated. At work, I found it increasingly difficult to concentrate on tasks. My mind would often drift to thoughts of Jake, replaying our conversations and the moments we had shared. It was hard to focus on the reports, meetings, and deadlines that had once seemed so straightforward. The constant preoccupation with our relationship was beginning to affect my productivity and efficiency. My colleagues had started to notice my distraction. "You seem a bit off lately," my friend and coworker Emily commented one afternoon. "Everything okay?" I forced a smile, trying to mask my inner turmoil. "Just a lot on my mind, I guess. Nothing I can't handle." But the truth was, it wasn't just work that was feeling the strain. My personal life was also affected. I found myself canceling plans with friends or showing up late because I was caught up in thoughts of Jake or the aftermath of our conversations. The emotional energy I was investing in our relationship was starting to take a toll on my ability to maintain my usual balance. One evening, as I sat alone at home, I couldn't help but feel overwhelmed. The excitement of our relationship was undeniable, but it was becoming clear that the intensity of my feelings was creating ripples in my life that I hadn't anticipated. I worried about how this would affect my friendships and my ability to manage my responsibilities effectively. I needed to address these concerns but wasn't sure how to begin. Jake had been a supportive partner, and our conversations had always been open and honest, but I found myself hesitating to bring up my worries. I didn't want him to feel that my feelings for him were causing problems, or that I was questioning our relationship. To regain some control, I started setting boundaries to manage my time better. I made a conscious effort to prioritize my work and social commitments, ensuring that I didn't let my thoughts about Jake consume all my waking hours. It was a delicate balancing act, but I hoped it would help me restore some semblance of normalcy. Despite my efforts, the underlying anxiety remained. I was torn between wanting to embrace the joy of our relationship and needing to maintain the equilibrium in other areas of my life. It was clear that navigating these complexities would require careful consideration and open communication. As I prepared for another day at work, I resolved to have an honest conversation with Jake. I needed to share my concerns and find a way to navigate the challenges together. Our relationship was important to me, but so was my personal and professional well-being. The path forward wouldn't be easy, but I was determined to find a way to harmonize the different aspects of my life. I hoped that with Jake's understanding and support, we could work through these difficulties and emerge stronger on the other side. For now, I took a deep breath and reminded myself that it was okay to seek balance and clarity amidst the storm. The sense of unease that had been gnawing at me seemed to intensify with each passing day. Although Jake and I had managed to address some of the challenges in our relationship, an unexpected revelation shook the foundation of my trust in him. It started on a quiet evening when Jake and I were relaxing together at my apartment. We had been discussing our plans for the future and sharing stories from our past, as we often did during our time together. The conversation turned to Jake's childhood, and he spoke of his family and the challenges he faced growing up. While he had always been open about his passion for art and his journey to becoming a museum guide, he had never delved deeply into his struggles. That night, however, he began to reveal some of the darker aspects of his past. He spoke hesitantly, his words coming slowly, as though he was grappling with how much to share. "There are things about my past that I've never really talked about," he began, his voice carrying a note of heaviness. "Things I'm not proud of." I listened intently, my heart sinking as he continued. Jake revealed that he had been involved in some troubling activities during a difficult period in his life. He described moments of poor judgment and mistakes that had caused him significant pain and regret. The weight of his words was palpable, and I could sense the struggle he felt as he recounted these experiences. The more he spoke, the more I felt a mix of shock and confusion. The person I had come to know and care for was now revealing a side of himself that I hadn't expected. The secrets he unveiled were not just personal failures, but also actions that had impacted others deeply. It was clear that he had been carrying these burdens for a long time, and his attempt to shield me from them had been both a gesture of protection and a source of secrecy. As Jake finished sharing his past, a heavy silence settled between us. I felt a surge of emotions: betrayal, disappointment, and uncertainty. The trust I had in him was now clouded by these revelations, and I struggled to reconcile the image of the man I knew with the shadows of his past. "I didn't know about any of this," I said quietly, trying to process the information. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Jake's eyes were filled with regret. "I was afraid of how you would react. I wanted you to see me for who I am now, not who I was. I thought if I kept these things hidden, they wouldn't affect us." The depth of his secrecy left me feeling conflicted. On one hand, I appreciated his honesty and the courage it took to reveal such personal information. On the other hand, the doubts and fears that arose from his past actions made it difficult for me to fully trust him. I wondered if his history would always cast a shadow over our relationship. "I need some time to think," I said, my voice trembling. "This is a lot to process, and I'm not sure how to move forward from here." Jake nodded, his expression a mixture of sadness and understanding. "I understand. Take all the time you need. I just want you to know that I'm committed to making things right and being open with you." As I watched him leave that evening, I was left alone with my thoughts and emotions. The revelation of Jake's past had created a chasm between us, and I knew that repairing the damage would require time, patience, and a great deal of reflection. The shadows of Jake's past had cast a pall over our relationship, and I was left to navigate the difficult terrain of trust, forgiveness, and understanding. The road ahead was uncertain, but I hoped that with honesty and effort, we could find a way to move forward together. The tension between Jake and me had reached a boiling point following his revelation of past secrets. I was still grappling with the emotional fallout, but life had a way of moving forward despite personal turmoil. Little did I know that a new challenge was about to test the resilience of our relationship even further. Jake began facing significant difficulties at work. The museum had been undergoing a series of changes, and the pressures of these shifts were taking a toll on him. I noticed the strain in his eyes and the frustration in his voice during our conversations. He seemed increasingly distant, his usually vibrant enthusiasm replaced by a cloud of stress and exhaustion. One evening, Jake called me after a particularly grueling day. His voice was heavy, and he sounded defeated. "I don't know how much longer I can keep this up," he confessed. "The pressure at work is relentless, and it feels like everything is falling apart." Despite my feelings of uncertainty and hurt, I couldn't ignore the depth of his distress. It was clear that Jake needed support, and I found myself compelled to help him through this difficult time. I took a deep breath, pushed aside my fears, and offered to be there for him in any way I could. "Let me help you," I said softly. "We'll get through this together. I know things are tough right now, but I believe in you." The following days were a whirlwind of late-night phone calls and long conversations. I listened as Jake vented his frustrations, offered advice where I could, and simply provided a shoulder to lean on. I made an effort to understand the intricacies of his work situation, even though it was often challenging to keep up with the details. As the weeks went by, I saw glimpses of the man I had fallen for returning. Jake's demeanor started to shift as he navigated his work challenges with a newfound determination. Our open conversations and my unwavering support seemed to be making a difference. Yet our relationship still bore the scars of his past and the strain of recent difficulties. One evening, after Jake had finally managed to resolve a major issue at work, he took me out for dinner to thank me for my support. As we sat across from each other in a quiet restaurant, the atmosphere was filled with a sense of tentative hope. "I don't know how I would have managed without you," Jake said, his eyes meeting mine with sincerity. "Your support has meant more to me than I can express. I know things haven't been easy, but I want us to work through this. I want us to be stronger together." I reached across the table and took his hand. "I've been struggling with my doubts and fears, but seeing you through this rough patch has shown me how much I care about us. I'm willing to work through our issues and face whatever comes our way." We spent the evening talking openly about our fears, our hopes, and our plans for the future. It became clear that despite the obstacles, we were both committed to making our relationship work. The challenges we faced brought us closer in many ways, and we were ready to tackle the difficulties together. As we left the restaurant hand in hand, I felt a renewed sense of connection and resolve. The road ahead was still uncertain, but we had taken a crucial step towards mending the fractures in our relationship. The journey would be far from smooth, but with mutual understanding and support, I believed that we could overcome the challenges and build a stronger bond. The storm of our recent trials had finally begun to subside, leaving behind a clearer path for us to navigate. Jake and I had emerged from the turbulence of his work struggles and the shadows of his past with a newfound understanding and commitment to each other. It felt as though we were standing on the brink of a new chapter, one where our relationship could flourish in ways we had only dreamed of before. Our days were now filled with a sense of renewal and intentionality. We made a conscious effort to prioritize our time together, exploring new activities and deepening our connection. From cozy weekends at home to spontaneous adventures around the city, each moment was an opportunity to strengthen our bond and build our future together. One of our favorite new routines was our weekly cooking nights. We'd spend hours experimenting with recipes, laughing over our culinary mishaps, and savoring the delicious results of our efforts. These evenings in the kitchen became a cherished ritual, a symbol of our growing partnership and shared joy. Our conversations had shifted from surface-level topics to more profound discussions about our dreams, values, and aspirations. We talked about everything from our ideal future to the small things that made us happy. It was during these moments of vulnerability and honesty that I truly felt how deeply our feelings for each other had matured. One crisp autumn afternoon, Jake and I took a stroll through a local park. The golden leaves crunched beneath our feet, and the air was filled with a sense of tranquility. As we walked hand in hand, Jake stopped and turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "You know," he said softly, "we've been through so much together. It's amazing to see how far we've come. I feel like we're in a place where we can truly start building something beautiful." I looked into his eyes, feeling a rush of warmth and affection. I couldn't agree more. We've faced so many challenges, but they've only made us stronger. I'm excited about the future and the possibilities that lie ahead for us. Jake squeezed my hand gently. "I want us to keep growing together, to keep supporting each other and creating a life that we both cherish. I've never been more certain of what I want than I am now." As we continued our walk, the future seemed filled with promise. We spoke about our plans, traveling to new places, pursuing our passions, and eventually building a life together. The vision we shared was one of hope and excitement, a testament to the strength of our relationship and our commitment to one another. That evening, as we sat on the couch, wrapped in a cozy blanket and enjoying the comfort of each other's presence, I reflected on how far we had come. The trials and tribulations we had faced had forged a deeper connection between us, one rooted in trust, understanding, and genuine love. Jake looked at me with a tender smile, his eyes reflecting the same hope and optimism I felt. "Here's to the new beginning," he said, raising his glass in a toast. "To us, and to everything we'll build together." I clinked my glass with him, feeling a profound sense of contentment. "To us," I echoed, my heart swelling with gratitude and excitement. As the evening drew to a close, I realized that we had successfully navigated the challenges of the past and were ready to embrace the future with open hearts. The new chapter we were beginning was filled with possibilities, and I felt confident that together we could overcome anything that came our way. Our journey was far from over, but the love and commitment we shared promised a future filled with hope, joy, and endless potential. With each step we took, we were writing a story of resilience and love, one that would continue to unfold with every new day.